Welcome back to another episode of the Daily Turnup. So excited to have you all back here today. Thank you for joining the 150. We love you. We want to give you as much credit for listening to every episode as we possibly can. So we actually have a very special episode today. There's been so much fan favorite, so much love in the comments section for CK's Conspiracy Corner. So much so that we're going to do an entire episode dedicated to that. CK, how excited are you? We are listening to the fans, your people.
MR, today is the day. I've been bouncing back and forth from the G League to the league. The Daily Turnup has signed me on the 7-day contracts, and I finally sat down and said, you know what? If I'm going to be the Jeremy Lin of the Daily Turnup, I have some stipulations, and this is number one. Mount Rushmore of Conspiracy Theories podcast, go.
Oh my gosh, I'm excited. If this episode gets over 500 views, I will sign you to a 1-year contract.
Done.
No pressure. Yeah. And bubblegum. All right, so CK, we're going to start off with my personal favorite conspiracy theory, and that is the Great Pyramids of Egypt. Yes, people, you heard that right. So listen to this spiel because it's the best one out there. When you think of the Great Pyramids of Egypt, the standard explanation is that these structures were built around 4,000, 5,000 years ago using simple tools, brute manpower, and a whole lot of time. But the deeper you look into it, the more that theory starts to crumble. The Great Pyramids of Giza alone contains over 2.3 million limestones and granite blocks, some weighing up to 80 tons. Mainstream archaeologists claims that they were moved in place with remarkable precision using nothing more than copper tools and ropes. But there's one glaring problem. No one's able to replicate that again. CK, when we were prepping for this episode, didn't you tell me that the United States still doesn't have the technology to move that amount of weighted ton in blockage form?
Yeah, some of these weights we still couldn't do today. I mean, you ever watch a crane, like modern day, try to pick up like a huge block? Now crane tips over, and some of these weights from the Great Pyramids were so big that we don't have the equipment to do that.
Insanity. So there's one problem right there, saying that this was built 4,000, 5,000 years ago. Then there's the alignment. The pyramids are perfectly aligned to cardinal points. We're talking true north. We're talking south, east, and west with mind-blowing accuracy. They also mirror the stars in Orion's belt, sparking theories that whoever built them had knowledge far beyond what we credit ancient civilizations today. And so the question becomes, were the pyramids really built by ancient Egyptians with rudimentary tools, or were they inherited structures left behind by a forgotten advanced civilization, or even, hey, might I say, aliens? Why do we find? Okay, CK, let me pause right there. What are your thoughts before I close this out? What are you thinking?
I love this conspiracy theory, and I think it definitely goes on my Mount Rushmore as well. Because there's so many offshoots to this conspiracy. The other thing is, like, are they just tombs to pharaohs, or what else is happening there? I think people have done like LiDAR, and maybe LiDAR is not the right tool, just recently, and they found that there's like pillars like up to like a kilometer underground of the pyramids.
Yeah, and what do you make though of the perfect accuracy to true north, to east, southwest, like just like lining up with Orion's belt? Like that is insane. Not only were they able to move these tons of blocks, but it lines up perfectly with the sky, or the stars in the sky.
And tons of blocks.
The astrology is unreal.
Yeah, and we're not talking they moved it from, across the pond. They moved it 500 miles away. That was the nearest like limestone quarry that they would have had to get it from. And so how is the question? I mean, people have said there's the giant race, that's long dead. And these giants, I think there's a really cool AI video of a giant lifting a stone on the pyramids. People have said aliens. People have said that, the civilization of Earth has risen and fallen up from catastrophic structures over and over again. I think, to me, that's the most probable. And Egypt tells a story of that.
Yeah, yeah. And let me add one more bit in there. We also find similar pyramid structures across the globe, from Mesoamerica to Cambodia, cultures, CK, that supposedly had no contact with one another. So, question is,
And MR,
yeah,
these same cultures across civilization have common extinction event myths, like the Great
Ooh,
Flood.
CK, you are leading me into the. You're just giving me that perfect alley oop right now. Oh my gosh, I could not agree more.
MR.
All right. So the question we really have to ask ourselves is, did aliens create these structures, or was it advanced civilizations before ours? And as I like to call it, there was a great reset. So this theory gained traction thanks to researchers like Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson, who argue that geology and archaeologists find evidence suggesting a massive global disaster, possibly a comet impacting, occurring around 12,000 years ago. They point to anomalies like Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, a massive site that predates Stonehenge by 6,000 years, and advanced ancient maps like the Priorius, which accurately depict Antarctica centuries before it was officially discovered. So we have to ask ourselves, are these aliens? Are these advanced civilizations? Did aliens come and just kill everybody on the planet, or did they make these structures to help coordinate the sky? Was there an internal world war between whatever civilization exists, basically killing everybody? Was it climate change? Was it an asteroid, or whatever? But I think, CK, we are a civilization that is restarting, and we may do it again to ourselves.
Yeah, that's I forget who said this, but the theory is like we continue to restart until we figure out how to be interplanetary before the next extinction event, whether that be nuclear war, an asteroid, or anything. So it's like it's a race every single time, and if the asteroid hits, or if we get into a nuclear war, the clock resets and we start the race again. We start over. And the only way out of that rat race is to become interplanetary and start colonizing other planets. And that's part of this theory too, though, is some believe like, okay, the Anunnaki, they came here, gave us the technology. And then like another offshoot of that theory is that they were from here or whatever origin planet originally. We're all part of the same species. And like they're trying to get us past that curve of extinction event so that we could join them in the stars.
So do you believe that like if you look at like human advancement, we pretty much plateau in the Middle Ages for like 500, 600, 700 years. We like plateau technology wise. Then all of a sudden there's the Industrial Revolution, and now the Internet Revolution, now AI. Do you think that there was just some droplets of information that helped propel a stagnation of 500, 600 years?
There's theories of that for sure. And if you look at, I mean, I don't know. I guess factually looking at it, it doesn't look. But if you think about like maybe when we talk about like Homo sapiens and Homo erectus, when you see that chart of monkey going into human,
yep,
maybe that's what happened. Like maybe the accelerant was there.
Okay. All right. So kind of what I'm thinking, I had this theory like 10 years ago, is that, we always wonder like, oh, why aren't aliens on Earth? But we have whatever happened in Roswell, New Mexico, and there's all these like little UFO sightings. I'm of the mindset that if I was an alien species, and obviously I'm super advanced because I can move across planets and move across galaxies and universes, is that if I look at Earth and I'm like, oh, they're either starting fire or they just discovered the internet. To me, because I'm so advanced, I'm looking at humans as ants. And why would you go mess with ants? Unless you're just a horrible person and you want to go stand on an anthill and kill all the ants there, like you're not really going to mess with it. And I would, if I were a betting man, I would bet that aliens are looking at Earth and just gauging like how advanced are we to the point where it is worth their while to come interact with us. For example, if the aliens came in the 17th century, all the people would not have been able to even comprehend what an alien is. They would have like fought, killed each other, and killed all the humans. I think you can see something similar to here. Like we're almost prepping. Like if aliens showed up, I would argue that the majority of people are like, oh, this is super cool. Like, this is awesome. Like that fear wouldn't exist because either Hollywood's preparing for us, podcasts like this have been preparing for us or preparing for it. And so it is more believable now than it was before, and that we're reaching an advancement in technology where it actually makes sense for the aliens to be like, oh, all right, cool. You're now maybe not on par with us, but you're worthy of having conversations with and advancing your technology further.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I agree with that because you go to the zoo, right, Emma? I go to the zoo, right? I like watching the gorillas, beat each other up. So I would liken us to that.
So wait, are you saying Earth is a zoo and aliens are just watching in the distance, just laughing at us?
I'm not. I don't believe that. I believe in Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, baby. But
I do too, for the record.
If that's the theory, I don't believe they'd see us as ants. I think they'd see us as these like primitive species that it'd be fun to go do some research on.
Okay, so going back to the pyramids then, because that is the original conspiracy theory, do you think it is more likely that the pyramids were either created by an advanced previous civilization that was inevitably wiped out, aliens put those two together, or modern day Egyptians that existed, 4,000 or 5,000 years ago?
I think there's plenty of evidence to point at least one, maybe multiple extinction events in the history of Earth that wiped out, an intelligent race. And then you also look at things like the burning of the Library of Alexandria and like the resetting of like knowledge. There's good evidence. Well, I wouldn't say there's good evidence that information has been reset, but there's definitely good evidence that there's been events that could have reset information.
I like it. So let's label this conspiracy theory as possible. Do you agree with that one?
Yeah, absolutely possible. If
you want to go probable,
it would be more likely than not. That we're more likely than the mainstream narrative that's currently that just Egypt did it. All
right. Well, I'm with you on that one, actually. I was trying to be a little conservative there, but I think this one is more likely than not. But all right, CK, lead us with your next one for number 2 on the Mount Rushmore of CK's conspiracy theories.
Oh, man. This one's good. And I'm gonna clump 2 and 1, but we're gonna talk about intelligence agencies involved in JFK assassination, and then I'm also gonna throw in
that's a fan favorite.
I'm also going to throw in the Trump attempted assassination.
Ooh, I like that one. I think that's a great one.
Yeah. So JFK, there's been documents, but I don't think it said a lot. But if you have the CIA director, Alan Dulles, who's like not just the director, like he's not just a director in history. He's like, he's not the founding father, but he's like the biggest name in CIA history. Like Dulles, that. Like, so he's the guy who got the CIA to be like this covert thing that you think of now.
Yep.
And JFK fired him. And also, he kind of blamed the CIA for Bay of Pigs. He didn't really support their moves during the Cold War. He thought they were going too far and pushing us on the brink of nuclear war.
Yep.
He kind of went to war with the CIA, cut, 20% of their budget. Some people say that he wanted to abolish the CIA. Sounds like a current president that we know. Going to war with the intelligence agencies. And who was it? Chuck Schumer, who warned against that. He said, good luck.
So are you saying that after JFK fired him, that he still had enough power, enough influence to pull his strings to get him assassinated? And if that's the case, because I don't know, was he then rehired back into the CIA, or was he never allowed to step foot back into that building and hold a predominant role?
I don't think he needed to step back foot. I mean, that's the conspiracy.
A little shadow government, maybe?
That's the conspiracy theory now, right? Is that the deep state, it's almost better to not be in the position and to be pulling the strings from the back, to be the air quotes, George Soros. So that's the argument, right? And the facts, Lee Harvey Oswald was in a lot of CIA monitored groups. So they were already looking at the guy, and there's declassified documents showing that the CIA withheld information on Oswald. And then also you have Oswald's assassination right after. So there's a lot of weird things that happen that just make you go, huh? Not to mention, the magic bullet and all of that.
Okay. Now, what about Trump's assassination? Obviously, that happened less than a year ago, and I don't want to steal your thunder, but I found it incredibly interesting that this story died with under a week. So a presidential candidate, former president, was literally attempted assassination, and the news cycle lasted, 72, 100 hours, if that. To me, that was incredibly strange. And then the whole shooter, no one actually checked the roof. Are we serious there?
Yeah, a lot of strange things happened with what is it, Thomas Crooks? No, Matthew Crooks. I'm sorry.
Yep.
So we have, not only did they not check the roof that he was on, they set up a command post in the building. They were in the building when he was on the roof.
Yup. How insane is that?
And then said they couldn't be on that roof because it was sloped. That's what the Secret Service said. So that, immediately, if you're not a conspiracy theorist, you still think it's the bullshit detector goes off, right?
The level of incompetence is too high to hold that position to not think that it is at some level an inside job.
Yeah, and you blame incompetence and you fire the head of the Secret Service. But who is it, Kimberly Cheadle? But it's pretty convenient that you just fire her and then the story dies and then everyone's like, okay, on to the next thing in the news cycle. A lot of other conspiracy things around it. Crooks appeared in a BlackRock advertisement that was filmed in high school. That was weird, wasn't it, guys?
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Let's see. They found, they pinged cell phones that went to both Crooks' house and the FBI headquarters in D.C. multiple times leading up to the event. So went to both FBI headquarters and Crooks' house. That's kind of weird, isn't it, guys? The scene was scrubbed immaculately right after the event. Instead of doing forensics and being transparent and opening it to the public, they just cleaned everything. That's kind of weird, isn't it, guys?
Just a little.
And then not only was the scene scrubbed, his house was scrubbed. There was no silverware in the silverware drawer.
That's just weird. That actually does not make any sense.
Unless you're looking for fingerprints, then it makes sense.
Ooh, there we go.
So, screaming foul play, although I will say Trump's president, Pam Bondi's the AG. If he wanted to look into it, Kash Patel is the head of the FBI. If they wanted to look into it, that's kind of the counter. It's if there's something there, everyone who can find it and do the digging is in, a position of power to do that digging, unless all of that was, shredded.
Yeah, I think that might actually be the most interesting part of this, because CK, I'm on the side where I think it is incredibly likely that it was an inside job. Now, inside, I think, is up for interpretation, whether it's the deep state, whether it's a billionaire, whether it is the CIA, FBI, the Biden administration, Democrats, and whatever.
Or Trump himself. That's the Democrat theory. Is he did it to get in the polls.
Yeah, I don't know. If you're shooting someone's ear, the precision to do that, regardless from what distance, you have to be and not actually clip their head and the bullet go through. The probability of how he got shot is 1 in a trillion. It is so astronomically high. It's not.
Well, what if he wasn't shot in the ear? I guess I'm devil's advocate. Or what if, he
Was
had
he
something
not?
else? What if he had something else to just kind of cut his ear?
Is there a picture of his ear anywhere on the internet?
There is, but
Didn't Joe Rogan say he saw that? I mean, maybe he's not the best source, but didn't Joe Rogan say he saw his ear and be like, oh no, yeah, that thing definitely got shot?
Sure, but what if, if I'm doing a movie and I could get something to split his ear in a second without killing him, You hear a gunshot, you press a button, ear splits.
Yeah, but is that what you need to get up in the rankings, like moving it up? And then Democrats hate you so much that they call you a fascist and a Nazi, and there's no way that they would be able to prove that?
I think for sure, not for sure, that might have won him the election.
I mean, I think Kamala, just being the worst presidential candidate of our lifetime, won him the election.
Yeah, but I mean, I think he was neck and neck with Joe Biden, and then that happened, and then they removed Biden. And I think Biden might have stayed, and I think half dad Weekend at Bernie's Biden had a better chance than Kamala.
Agreed. But the reason why I think it was an inside job, and again, I'm not saying who it is. I have no idea. Pick your person. But this is days after Trump embarrassed Joe Biden in the presidential debate. And this was before Joe Biden stepped down. And to me, the way I read that is, that debate was so bad. Everyone, even all the Democrats, like, Trump's going to win. He just embarrassed Joe Biden on the world stage in that debate. Joe Biden's actively not wanting to drop out. So their only shot was to kill him. And obviously they missed, but that's kind of what I actually think that is incredibly likely.
That's a good argument. And I'm saying that playing devil's advocate.
No, of course.
Again, where I lie on this theory is I have no idea what happened, but what they're telling me happened didn't happen. Like, there's more to the story than Thomas Cook fired a shot at Trump and he wasn't working with anyone. Because, I mean, the best way, most politically correct way I can say this is take one look at the kid. He wasn't working alone.
Yep, exactly. So, CK, where would you rank JFK assassination?
There's more to the story than
I say incredibly likely, over 80% likely that it was an inside job.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep us not canceled.
Okay. Never mind, guys. It's a low 20% that it happened. Low 20%. Don't get it. Our 150 people listening, don't cancel us because, we're so big on this platform. All right. Where do you think the Trump assassination? Dude, you can say 100% you won't get canceled. He's president right now. You're in the clear for at least three more years.
I'm not worried about Trump canceling. I'm worried about YouTube canceling me. And when you hear the next conspiracy from me, this will just be the cherry on top by the end of it. So I'm trying to play ball until we open the floodgates. But no, I'll say again, there's more to the story than what's been told. Crooks didn't work alone. Oswald didn't work alone. Whether that be the intelligence agency or someone else or a foreign agency, I don't know. But there's no way these guys worked by themselves. And I'll go even a step farther. There's no way that even if the intelligence agencies weren't complicit, they were aware.
I think that's fair. I think that is very, very believable. All right, let's jump over to the next one. And this is another one that I don't know how much I believe it, but I definitely think it's really fun. And, there could be some truth and validity to it. So most people believe governments run the world, whether it's a prime minister, a president, parliament, the people that we elect. We watch the debates, we see their faces in the media, and the whole 9 yards. But beneath the public stage, many believe there's a far more powerful and secret force pulling the strings, a hidden global order, not elected, no accountability, and not working in the public's best interest.
The cabal.
Sure. The Illuminati. Whatever you want to call this new world order. And for those that can't see, I'm doing like the what's it called? What I'm doing with my fingers? Quotations. Anyways,
Air quotes?
air quotes. Yeah. Suggests that a small group of ultra wealthy elites, including high ranking political figures, banking families, multinational corporations, and even royal bloodlines, control global events from the shadows. According to believers, wars, economic crashes, pandemics, and even the rise and fall of nations aren't organic. They're orchestrated moves on a global chessboard designed to consolidate power, erode national sovereignty, and eventually create a single world government. They point to powerful organizations, the World Economic Forum, the Trilateral Commissions, invite-only summits where heads of states, CEOs, and media moguls meet behind closed doors with no public records. Then,
Bohemian Grove, there, MR.
there we go. Then there's the financial system, dominated by institutions like the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and privately owned central banks. Critics say these entities don't actually serve people, they serve profits and control. And one of the most chilling aspects of this theory is the idea that democracy is just a well-crafted illusion, that the right and left are just theater. Both sides ultimately answering to the same puppet master. And while we argue over policies and personalities, the real power remains untouched, working toward a long-term goal, a unified global regime with total surveillance, digital currency control, and a population too distracted or dependent to resist.
Dang, man, I'm amped up.
Are you hyped right now? Can you feel it?
I'm ready to go George Washington.
Let's
cross
CK,
Delaware.
Let's go fight those redcoats. They don't stand a chance. So, CK, do you think it's possible that there's just people working behind the shadows, pulling the strings? And I'm not just talking about, lobbyists or interest groups funding politicians and, buying their vote or buying their ability to write a new law or protect what they're talking or protect their special interests. I'm talking about whether it's a super wealthy, whether it's people in powerful families like the Rothschilds or whatever, are manipulating the world that best serves them and their vision of the world and what keeps them in power and influence.
They have to be, right?
Ooh, why?
I mean, that's what makes sense. When we talk about topics that just all of a sudden become the most important topic of the time for every single country at the same time.
Yep.
I think that begs the question is why and who's pulling those strings? Who said this was the most important topic? When you talk about mass migrants, like that wasn't just like it used to be in the 90s and 2000s and 80s that people from Mexico were trying to get to the U.S. border. It made sense, right? Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But now you have like 16 countries trying to cross over to Mexico from the U.S. border. And the UK, Germany, France, Spain, like overnight, every single first world nation, Western world has become like a bastion of mass migrants. Who's pulling those strings? It might not be Klaus Schwab. It might not be the Rothschilds. It might just be China saying, if I push all of these people, they can't support, they become a welfare state where they have to support all of these people suckling at the teat of the government, and they will collapse because they have more takers than givers.
Yep.
That, that might be likely, but that's still someone pulling the strings.
Yeah, and I think if you just follow the money and see who profits from wars, from global events, we used to joke around about always, hey, buy the dip. That's where you make your money. Warren Buffett talked about it too. Oh, if you think a company's good, if the stock price goes down, then buy it. These economic crashes are just goldmine opportunities for those that have money. I mean, we haven't talked about Trump yet, about did he artificially create an economic downturn in the stock market like last month, 2 months ago? And he's like, hey guys, buy the dip. It's the best opportunity to invest. And then within a month it's high and a ton of people made millions and billions of dollars off of it. Not saying that he's a part of the New World Order, but the point being is that I think if you look into it and follow the money, there are people that are pulling the strings that benefit them. And I don't think this is a good or evil. I think this is solely how can I remain in power, and how can those that I care about and trust, family, close, whoever, can maintain power. And I think, if you dive into the Rothschilds, that whole thing is super interesting. But you brought up something I hadn't really thought about, and that's China. So I think a shadow government, let's just call it that, pulling the strings in Europe and the United States is very, very believable. Just the way that our economies and our capitalistic beliefs and how we, the fourth branch of government being the media has so much power and influence. But China and even Russia, to an extent, are so close grip on their own power, and we have such little access as foreigners to understand what's truly happening in those countries. I do find it a little hesitant to believe that some European and Americans actually pulling the strings to those countries.
No, to those countries, no. I think they're almost resistant to it. It seems like they're pulling the strings, or at least watching it happen. When you talk about Swalwell dating, a Chinese spy, when you talk about who's a WWE wrestler actor?
The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin,
No,
The Undertaker,
and
John Cena.
John Cena.
Okay.
When we talk about him apologizing for saying that Taiwan's a country in Chinese, China has a stranglehold on the powerful people in the U.S. because of money. So I think the most probable of this conspiracy is it's bad actors in Russia and China pulling the strings to destroy us so they can overcome us. But there are still some old wealth families that you scratch your head and you're like, what are you doing with your money? Probably nothing good.
Yeah, for real. And the other thing too, I think I don't know. I was going to say, I think it's easier to control people now than it was 100, 200 years ago. And I paused and I'm like, honestly, wasn't that hard. They had one source of information, like a single newspaper in a city. You can write whatever you want on it. And if that is people's only source of information, then they're probably going to believe it. But now you can just flood someone's TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and just slowly, meticulously guide them to a left, to the right, to a specific policy, idea, whatever, and just by putting the right things in front of them can get you there. So I think it's pretty easy to control people through social media and really the media in general, just by having that access to understand, hey, how do people think? How do they change their opinions, their minds? Having all that extra research, all that knowledge, and you can pretty much convince people of anything. And it's just always so interesting that we're always at that the left and right are always just at odds with each other and can't agree on anything, even though a lot of things that Republicans believe right now is what Hillary Clinton was preaching in the 90s. You ever watch those tapes? To the point where each political party is a hypocrite because the Republicans really shouldn't believe this if they believe that, and same with the Democrats. It seems so fabricated that it's almost more believable that someone's pulling the strings, making people feel a certain way.
MR, that's an excellent point. It's like our politicians don't actually believe in anything. But you brought up the juxtaposition of do we have, even though we have the most freedom of information now, is the least free we ever were in terms of being sheep. Yep.
It's the illusion of freedom.
The illusion of freedom might be more dangerous. And maybe you can cut ties to, there's a lot of Freemasonry things where all of that stuff was, the strings were pulled throughout history. But
let's dive into that real quick. You said we have more information now at our disposal than any point in the history of humanity as we know it. Couldn't agree more. How often, though, do you think people are using that? How often do you think people are using the internet, using AI to learn, to deep dive, to explore, to gain more information, to see the other side? I would argue that there's only a few groups of people that do it. They use it on everyone else to make them think a certain way. And then you just kind of reinforce what you believe. Like, let's say you believe that Michael Jordan's the best basketball player and I think LeBron James is. Let's use an analogy that's not politics. Well, if I think LeBron's the best and I've seen his highlights, his records, whatever, I'm then going to look for information that only supports my belief that LeBron James is the best ever. And I'm only going to look for faults of Michael Jordan, and you're going to do the inverse. And so even though we have all this information, we're already so laser focused into an opinion and thought that we're not willing to change, that we're not even looking at all the information.
Yeah. In 1450, you were attracted to the only light that was there. And maybe that light was misinformation, but maybe it was right. But now you're almost drowning it in noise. And there's so much information. You can just go to you can be swayed any way people want because there's so much information out there. You're just malleable. You're clay, right?
Yep. Yeah.
So I'll tie it back. Pontius Pilate, quid est veritas? What is truth? Jesus, baby.
Yeah, outside of him, I'm not sure there's any real truth anymore. Just anything can be manipulated. There's always two sides to every story. It's impossible to know what really is the truth. So, CK, do you think not probable, slightly probable, more probable than not, highly probable that there is some form of shadow government out there pulling some degree of strings? I'm not saying that they control the world. I'm saying pulling some degree of the strings.
It's not even a conspiracy that some degree is being pulled by. I mean, Elon Musk has a lot of influence in the current government. So you can check that block. Some degree is being pulled, right? That's not a conspiracy.
It's almost a fact at this point.
Yeah, but more probable that more is happening behind the scenes that we don't know about. Yeah, that's happening.
I agree.
On both sides and multiple governments and not just us.
Yeah. No. This is overarching.
If you want to go like CK's like a real deep dive.
Oh gosh.
There's collaboration between governments and there's a lot of like notes pushed where they're collaborating on their talking points and what the mainstream focus is today, whether that be the green movement or migrants or whatever else it is.
I can buy that. I do find it very interesting. We haven't heard about climate change in the last 2 years. So, it's just weird how things come and go in the spotlight. Okay, CK. We have our big three on the Mount Rushmore of CK's conspiracy theory, Mount Rushmore. Bring us home with number 4.
Yeah, I will preface this with, I'll say this probably isn't a Mount Rushmore, but it's fun.
Oh, okay. All right. You know what, CK? I like that. We're keeping the final Mount Rushmore head in the back pocket. If people love this episode, we'll bring that one out. Let's throw in a fun one. That's just fun. Let's have some fun, CK.
Yeah, I'll do you one better. Comment, what goes number 4? What's Teddy Roosevelt on this Mount Rushmore?
Ooh, I like it. All right, you heard it from CK. Leave your comment what you want us to talk about for the final conspiracy theory or what is one of your favorites. Let's go.
But I'll give you number 4 for this podcast. And it's almost laughable compared to the other 3. Don't cancel me, YouTube. I preface this with like, there's not enough facts, obviously, but it's fun and it's funny. Emmanuel Macron's wife is actually his biological father.
The audience can't see my face right now, but I'm doing those. What you mean, bud? How does that make any sense?
I mean, so earlier
break that down.
Earlier in this podcast, I said, just look at him, and he didn't Thomas Crooks didn't work alone.
Okay.
And so I'll give you the same advice and say, just look at her. And say that Bridget Macron was possibly his father. I mean, I bring this up only because yesterday they were like in the news. Emmanuel Macron got off a plane, and I guess they didn't know the cameras on and the doors open. And like, this is a fact. This isn't a conspiracy. His wife, Bridget Macron, was seen slapping him in the face, like hitting him.
Yeah, I saw that video. Yep.
And then like, he clearly looks at her like, hey, the door's open. The news are here. and he just kind of looks at her and then just like looks and gives his like best smile and wave, like nothing happened. And then he just like, later on, they asked him about it. He denied it. Was like, oh yeah, sometimes people see things and they're nothing. Like, what do you see other than like she slapped the shit out of him?
Okay, all right. So I'm like Googling this as we're talking because I haven't heard this one before. I didn't even know this was a thing. So Bridget is 72 years old and Emmanuel is 47. So already massive age gap of what?
That's one argument.
5 years.
Yep.
Okay. So are there no photos of her like as a child? Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, so you're just saying that, hey, she's transgender. At some point she made the switch or he made this switch. And then Emmanuel's like, yeah, I should marry my father because this is a great political move. Do they have kids?
They have kids. Well, so not her first marriage. So the argument is she had kids before their marriage. And
okay,
the conspiracy is that all of that was fake and it was a different person and yada, 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 yada. I will acknowledge that it's flimsy, but it has gained a lot of traction. Candace Owens has picked this up. Candace Owens firmly believes it. And the biggest argument for is that Candace Owens has posted like proof that the government of France said we'll give you $4 million now and $50,000 a month for the rest of your life if you stop talking about this.
I would do it.
I would do it too.
I would do that in a heartbeat. Are you kidding me?
You guys, I need you guys to view this so we can get big enough where we get blackmailed
to not talk about something.
To not talk about something.
I know a lot. We've talked about like sellouts in our politics, but hey, we're not elected officials. We have no oath to be better. If someone wants to buy out us to not talk about something, oh no, twist my arm.
Yeah, sell me out today.
So I just Googled Emmanuel Macron's father, Jean-Michel Macron, still alive apparently, 75 years old. What, is he not a real person? He's not the real father?
That's the theory.
All right, I'm putting this one definitely in the fun category, not in the believable. I'm going at a hard 0% that this is real. But you know what, CK? Because it's you, I'll put it at 1%.
Yeah, 1% is where I'm at. I agree. It's fun. By the end of this packet, we're 43 minutes deep. I'm like 3 whiskeys deep. That's all. That's all I can take personally, and I needed that many whiskeys to bring this up anyway. So I'll say 1%. But it does beg the question: does it happen anywhere? Is Trudeau Fidel Castro's son? That's another conspiracy theory.
Interesting.
They look very alike. Look at pictures of Fidel Castro young and Trudeau.
Do you even know who your father is now? Are we questioning everything? Do we know who anyone's father is?
That's a good question.
Right? At the end of the day, you only really know who your mother is, right? Assuming that there's proof that it even happened and you weren't switched in the hospital room with another kid. Is everything a lie? Is there a truth? CK, is there even a truth?
Jesus Christ, baby. That's the third time. I will not deny him like Peter.
Oh man, I love it. CK, you got any closing comments before we wrap this one up?
No, Emmer. I'll pass the torch to you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, CK. This has been an absolutely blast of an episode. To the 150 that are still listening, if we made it actually to 150 people still listening at this point, thank you. You guys are the real OGs. Please leave a comment. Please like. Please share. CK and I were talking about opening up a website to buy some merch. So please leave a comment if you actually would. I really don't want to go through the time and effort and spend more money out of pocket for something that is just going to have no one buy except for like my parents and maybe CK's parents. Oh, and also shout out to Saddam, or the dude that always comments, not the real Saddam, not the horrible Saddam that was executed by his own people, but the one leaving comments. We do appreciate the support. Maybe not a fan of the name and the picture in there.
I'm a fan.
Little,
Saddam H69, baby.
But anyways, thank you for listening. We appreciate you so much. And we're on Spotify now and Apple iTunes. So we're moving up in the world.
Link in the comments.